Hi, I'm Josh.
And I'm Bailey.
And you're watching
ETC. Doot, 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 doot.
Yes, and welcome back to episode 2. We have been watching the hit show
Love is Blind.
And we have some tea.
We have
for
some.
Sure.
For real. Season 5 was
pretty good. But it definitely could have been a better season.
Yeah.
Spoilers, I think only one marriage out of the entire thing. So
yeah, by now, hopefully you guys have all seen it by the time you guys watch or listen to this.
If you haven't, well then I'm sorry, go watch it.
Yeah. Well, we haven't said the couple yet, but we probably will spill it during this podcast. So
a lot will be spoiled.
Yes. So if you haven't watched the episodes or the season at all, please go watch before you take a look and see
the show at all, allow us to explain. So, Love is Blind is a Netflix-hosted series about taking single men and single women and separating them into two sections, and then they each, a man and a woman, will go into a pod, air quotes, and they will go into this pod and they won't be able to see each other, but they'll be able to talk to each other. And so I forgot how long they spend in the pods. 2 weeks or something like that?
I want to say it's about 10 days is what I heard from the reunion.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, almost 2 weeks. And so they spend 10 days talking to... At first, they start just randomly, just different people. And then as they slowly figure out who they actually want to talk to, they build a more connected relationship, if you will.
You know what's crazy is I don't realize that there were so many people at the beginning of the show, and when you near towards the end of the picking process, there's no one there, and you forget everyone who was starting in the season.
The show will
I don't even know half the
focusing
people
on people as it goes on through the first. What is it, the first 2 episodes? Is them in the pods, I think?
Yeah, so the first 2 episodes usually are them in the pods, and then the third episode and the 4th episode are usually the proposals.
Yeah.
Or the meets, and then they go on their honeymoon.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even get to that.
Yeah.
So after they spend 10 days, or I guess 9 days, and then on their 10th day, they're expected to propose to whoever they've been talking with and haven't seen for this amount of time, and they've built this connection with. So then they are now officially engaged, and then they actually see each other for the first time, and it's always sometimes awkward, sometimes exciting to see the sliding doors open and then they run towards each other or walk towards each other awkwardly.
We've seen some very cute ones, and then we've seen some where it's the door opens and they're like, ooh. And we're like, oh shoot,
love isn't that blind, I see.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. It gives me secondhand embarrassment. I don't really get that as often, but it does make me feel some sort of way. It makes me think that originally the person who was, in the pod, it was more interested in looks. That the personality didn't really matter. It was all about what they looked like. So that's the kind of unfortunate thing about this.
Or they threw the personality out the window as soon as they saw the looks.
Yeah, that's kind of the unfortunate thing about this show.
It's great tea, though.
It is.
So, it begs the question then, is it a good idea? Is this experiment of Love is Blind, is it even effective? I mean, considering this season only had one married couple, is it really that good of an idea?
I also want to preface that this season was so fast. I feel
go pretty quick.
I feel like there was so much going on. There was a lot less couples to work with. We really didn't get a lot of couplage.
Even from the beginning, it really wasn't as many as it had been in previous seasons.
Everyone kind of just realized probably that it was just I'm not really interested in the cast that we have or whatever. So
I think I can't say the idea or the experiment of it is really that great.
It's a great experiment.
So I want to get to my improvements of it later, but this experiment is to determine if love is actually blind, and I think so far it's proven so. To some, it doesn't really matter, or perhaps the looks they find are something they are okay with.
Mm-hmm. What I hear a lot in the seasons are, you're not who I would date in the real world, which is kind of a secondhand
It's
compliment,
kind of a backhanded compliment.
A backhanded compliment, and I think that's a little like you're not typically someone I date in the real world, so it's like I would probably keep that to myself.
I'd say it's almost like if you phrase it in the right way, it could be like I've been so dumb in trying to chase people that don't look anything like you. I'm a fool for doing such a thing. I mean, you could take it that way too.
And that's kind of
more likely than not, it's probably the backhanded compliment. Way, sadly. So, and I think the biggest issue with the experiment, at least in the beginning, like I would really consider that first 2 episodes where they're in the pods, or 3 episodes where they're in the pods, to actually be the experiment. Everything after that is just kind of the aftermath, if you ask me. But the issue that I think they have the biggest problem with in the pods is it's really not that much time. 10 days, and now you're
or less than
going to get married to this person. So it's really not that much, and you don't experience the highs and lows of a proper relationship. You just it's like you're reading their Wikipedia page going, yep, that's a cool person, I'm going to marry them.
Yeah, I think the experiment does continue on after the pods, because they're seeing like, hey, does this connection stick outside of the pods? Like, do I really like this person? Like I like them in the pods, like, because there was this part in the season where the one couple was saying like, I just liked you more in the pods, or like I just connected more with you in the pods, and it's like, well, look, we're not in the pods anymore, so like, is this gonna work for you?
Yeah, the pods is such a controlled environment that I think they don't really see all of that person. Sure, they get to know like, oh, when I was 12, I broke my leg, and it makes me really sad. Then you can hear their ups and downs, but like, it doesn't really show how they are in the real world, which I guess is why they then go on that honeymoon for an episode or 2, and then live with each other for like a month or something like that.
It's way less than that. I don't know how long it is, but I know it's. I think
quick.
the whole thing is like a month.
Yeah, it's really quick. So I think if I was to improve upon the experiment, would be to find some way to make it longer. Like, maybe not force them to stay in the pods for forever, but like find some way so that they can experience life outside of just this controlled little box. And so they can actually see the highs and lows of each person before they end up proposing to them, which is serious legal things. So,
Yeah.
So, and one thing I've noticed, and I think some of the internet has noticed, is the cast that they bring on. Like, so I'm sure you've heard of the term conventionally attractive, which means the way I would describe conventionally attractive is like, are you going to see their face shape on a billboard, for a modeling company or something, conventionally attractive of like what society deems to be.
Are they going to be used for stock photos?
Yeah, they're going to be used for stock photos and stuff. And there's a bit of controversy of like, they only allow conventionally attractive people on the show.
Yeah, you know what I would love to see, and I'm so sorry if I get canceled for this. I would love to see just average Joe Schmoes.
Yeah.
And you know what? Pair them up with supermodels.
Random people.
Pair them up with supermodels or like models in general, and see if love is really blind.
There you go.
I'm sorry. I would love to see that. I think everyone would love to see that.
That would be controversial.
And it's not even average Joe Schmoes. It's like someone that we would probably be like, oh, they're pretty, or like they're handsome. Yeah. But like you pair them with like the ones we've been seeing in the seasons, and we're like, okay, come on.
Yeah.
Like you guys are finding a hot cast.
Yeah.
Find an okay cast, please.
Whenever like, it's really disappointing when like, it's mostly guys, but women do it as well. Where like they are revealed and you can just see the disappointment in the other person's eyes. It's like,
we can definitely talk about some of the reactions we had during the season, some of the reveal, some of the tea that happened, the crazy stuff, the drama, all of it.
Mm-hmm. So some of the cast we're looking at for this episode, some of the ones that actually ended up on the show, because everyone was on the show, like a lot of people were, but they didn't all get much airtime. Because they often didn't end up in a couple or weren't involved in the drama. So these are some of the heavy hitters of the show. We have Stacy. She's 34 and is a director of operations for a Pilates studio.
I believe so, unless that was her second job in this show, but we
Again,
never really got into her full thing if that wasn't her job. So
we have Lydia, 32, and she is a geologist. I think her family's from Puerto Rico too.
Yeah.
Taylor, 26, a teacher. Aliyah, 29, an ICU travel nurse. That's like a tough job. And then we have Johnny, 32, a lawyer. And on the men, we have Izzy, which I think his name was Ismail. He's 31 and is in sales. He does sales. Milton, 25. He's a petroleum engineer. He was the youngest man on the show this season, actually.
Yeah.
Jared, 32, a firefighter, and is always wearing red, white, and blue. Yeah. And then you have Uche, 34, a lawyer / entrepreneur. I don't think we ever figured out what his entrepreneurial stuff was.
He could do something for himself, yeah.
And then
maybe he's a model.
Maybe he's a model. And then we have Chris, 28. And he has quite the title. Project Manager for Commercial and Retail Development.
He just does it all. Let's start with the first couple, I think.
Start with the first couple?
Yeah. So Stacy and Izzy. Their connection in the pods. They were, in my eyes, because I know you... so I'll preface again. I watched the majority of this season with a few of my friends, and then Josh jumped in and I kind of filled him in. And he usually watches the seasons, but this time he was just, doing his own thing.
Girls' night and they were watching the show.
And so I was like, you have to see this. This is crazy. I feel like this is the craziest season, so you have to see it. But Stacy and Izzy, I feel like I knew it from the beginning. And like my friends can call me out on it if they think I'm crazy, but I knew they were going to be toxic together.
Yeah, from the start.
I knew it. I had something in me that I was like,
How did Stacy and Izzy do on the honeymoon? I don't think you told me about
they did.
How were they on honeymoon?
They did great. Honestly,
okay.
That's when I started to have like a little more faith in them. I was like, oh, okay, they're cute. Like, compared to the other couples. Like there was Milton and Lydia, who Lydia was kind of like talking to Milton like he was a child, which he is technically. He's the young, because she's
a lot older than he is.
She's like a few, like I want to say 5 or 6 years older.
I'm not good at math.
And so, he was leaving his towel everywhere, and so that was happening. And then there was Jared and Taylor, and they were just a mess.
Up. Yeah.
And it wasn't even. Yeah, I could really talk about that, but they just weren't. They weren't. They were not. So they were Stacy and Izzy were giving for that period of time.
But when they got home, that's where things really switched
and
up.
This is when he kind of came into play. This is when you started to come in and listen or watch in. This is when we found in Izzy's apartment.
Oh, yes.
Condoms
the one
and...
heck of a bachelor's pad.
And missing earrings from girls and jewelry.
So he had a whole nightstand. And he would open the nightstand. There was little bits of jewelry, maybe an earring, a necklace, or stuff that women that have stayed at his place, hint, hint, wink, wink.
Yeah, what is it called
and
when they do
accidentally
that?
left something.
Trophies?
It does look like a trophy collection.
Yeah, it's a trophy collection.
And so Stacy's like, just throw it out.
Yes, and I totally agree with that.
He was so reluctant.
Agree with that.
Dude, just throw it out.
Why are you keeping
They're
this?
never gonna come back, so just throw it out. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was weird.
It's like when guys keep the names of the girls that they've hooked up with in their phone and a notes pad or something.
Yeah, that's weird.
But this is out in the open.
Yeah.
At least you can hide that.
It didn't get much better as they continued throughout the house, and Stacy took exception to his. Was it plastic?
Silverware.
Yeah, his plastics and paper silverware.
He's like, well, what if I serve you on a paper plate and a Solo cup? Are you gonna think less of me? And he's like, and she was like, well, no offense. I mean, if I'm, if you're cooking for me, and she comes from a very wealthy family, so understandably she knows that she deserves the best. But the way she would put things throughout the season did make her come off a certain way.
So they started kind of falling apart, and it eventually came out that Izzy had like credit problems.
Yeah,
I think.
they were talking about it in
I
the
missed
pods.
a part. Yeah, they were. I guess they were talking about it in the pods, and Izzy has like a credit problem, has some debt with credit cards, and is like working to pay it off.
Mm-hmm.
And so he hid it from Stacy. And so Stacy was really upset at that point. It's like, I don't know if I can trust you anymore. You lied to me about whether, your debt and stuff like that.
And not to really stick up for Izzy, but at the same time, I don't think he really lied about it. I think it just never really came up in like a proper conversation to have.
Hey, just so you know,
I just need to know your financial situation, please.
I'm
right
deep
now, all
in
of it.
credit card debt. Just so you know, like how, like just over the breakfast table, like what?
That's exactly what he was saying. Is like, well, how am I supposed to bring that up? But like at the same time, yeah, it's pretty important when you're marrying someone. Like, do you need to have some like guidelines? Like, because now when you marry that person, you're also going to take in that debt that you have. So that may have been a big factor into how she made her choice.
So, yeah, she did make her choice. There was some speculation on the internet that Stacy was trying to find a way to get rid of Izzy and kind of because she did not like his financial situation.
Yeah.
I didn't see a whole lot of evidence of that, but it definitely felt like Stacy was not thinking on the same page, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So now Lydia and Milton, when they got back, it was still a bit rough. But spoilers, they did okay. So
yeah. I think the only hiccup that I really saw from them was when they were at dinner that last night.
That last dinner was rough.
Where it was like she had to walk off and like he was kind of being emotionally not there.
Even though Milton
But in my eyes, like so I thought he was being very mature. Like I think I mistook him being mature for him being
emotionally distant.
And I don't
So Milton is 25. He's the youngest guy on the show. He was just emotionally distant. As in, like, he would still treat people kind of like at a distance. Like, oh, that's your emotions are your thing. Problem, Don't. Yeah, like, oh, I don't have like, basically, I don't have emotion, which is not maturity. It's being emotionally distant and emotionally unavailable, which is not something you should be in a relationship.
But I will say, at the reunion, he was the most mature.
He did redeem himself.
He really like shocked me, honestly.
He did redeem himself a bit. I think he learned a lot from Lydia, and probably from his family and Lydia's family, about like it's okay to be mature and have emotions. Like those things can coexist.
Yeah.
Being mature is not being emotionally distant. It's understanding your emotions and understanding others' emotions and then playing nice.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
So they had some difficulties with Milton's immaturity because he's 25.
Yeah, he was leaving towels all over the place.
Yeah, he
apparently,
was still in college, I think, and had a roommate. Was he still in college, or was he just has a roommate?
He just had a roommate.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm pretty sure he worked a full-time engineering job. Sorry.
That's all right.
Oh, I'll let her leave. Hold on.
Where is he? I think he had a full-time job. I mean, he's a petroleum engineer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was the busiest one of the cast.
Yeah, apparently he was working a lot off
one of
screen.
the things, yes. So one of the things that I thought they were going to struggle with or show a little bit more is that Milton was having to work the night shift. Yes. And Lydia was working her regular time. I believe that was the couple. Yeah, that was. Because he had been gone so long filming in the pods, he had no choice because he was new and he's so young and like, how they treat the young new people in a job. Yeah. He had to take the bad shift. Yeah. So I didn't see any struggles from that. I remember Lydia kind of mentioning like that kind of sucks. Like I'm never going to see you then, but they made it.
Yeah.
So.
And then we have Taylor and Jared. Didn't even make it to the real world.
So I didn't know how to think about them. In the pods, I really liked them. I think I really liked them in the pods. I can't remember like if I was iffy or if I was like okay with them together. I do know that when they met each other, I was also not under the impression that anything was wrong.
Yeah.
Jared seemed like very happy. She seemed very happy, and that was kind of it from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they got to the honeymoon, it was like he wasn't talking. He was being very awkward, which understandably there are tons of cameras around, and I get that, but you're still the same person you were in the pod. So you can be yourself. There were cameras in the pods, but now that people are following you around, or you feel like more scared. I don't know. It just seemed kind of like a
I didn't see
excuse.
I didn't see that part of the show, but his excuses that he made during the reunion was that was the cameras, and like I just didn't see it. It was weak. I think he just genuinely did not.
I think
like
he's shallow.
How
honestly.
she looked. I think it was his vision was
my
very
God.
2020 when it came to Blind. When it came to Love Is Blind.
He was the one that said like he wouldn't date her outside of or in the real world. Like he wouldn't choose her. In every meeting he had, he was wearing something American flag. And at one point, you didn't see this, but at one point, he brought an American flag. My friend and I were literally like, is he wiping his tears with a American flag?
My pronouns are USA.
Like a full-size American flag. He had brought you know the ones you hang outside like your house on like a stick? He had an American flag, like wiping his eyes. And he wore American flag socks. He wore American flag shorts, shirt. He was the American flag. He was very patriotic. We'll just say that. He is a firefighter.
Funny. He is a firefighter.
So, I mean, I get the I almost said patriarchy. The patriotism. They were in bed and discussing one night because she was fed up. She was like, why are you so different? I'm sick of like this awkwardness. What is going on? Mm-hmm. So he was truthful with her, and he basically told her that when they met, she looked fake. Basically alluding to her getting plastic surgery on her face, which is honestly so messed up to me. Yeah. Just because it's like, if that makes her feel more confident, do it. And in the moment, I'm sure she felt kind of bad because when you go from, you know, not liking yourself to now liking yourself because you changed something, being told, oh, I don't like you this way does not help. No. And he said, painful. You look much better without makeup like you are right now. Yeah. And it's just like, well, if I want to paint, I don't remember what she said, but it was like, if I want to paint my face, I'm going to paint my face.
Yeah. And so they didn't make it into the real world at all. They broke up right then and there, basically.
So she stayed the night somewhere else. They stayed separately. And then in the morning they met back together and she gave him back the ring. And then that was the end of them. They didn't even go to the little reunion, the barbecue reunion party. Yep.
So then we can look at Uche and Aaliyah. Excuse me.
So Uche and Aaliyah, and then if you tag on Lydia as a kind of love triangle at the beginning, is a very interesting situation. So there's a lot to talk about with this triangle couple, or just in general. Uche gave me frat boy vibes off the bat. Like, he just seemed like the one that would try to sabotage like anything or anyone's relationship to make sure, like, I don't know how to word it. He just did not give me good vibes. He just seemed very drama filled from the get-go for me. Aaliyah was very honest in her telling him that she cheated in a previous relationship. And he goes, "Oh, so you're a recent cheater." Just like, it was just so.
Wasn't it like multiple years ago?
It was like a year and a half, which the timeline's not great, but and like she was very honest about it. No, she didn't tell the guy until I think after they broke up, or maybe he didn't even find out. I don't know. Yeah. But the situation was kind of crap in general, and like I understand, like she knows now that was wrong, and like he knows now that what he said was wrong to make the situation worse because she was being vulnerable in that point. Mm-hmm. But the weirdest thing about this couple, Uche and Aaliyah, was that Lydia was very close, got very, very close because all the girls stay together in the show, they stay in, and the guys stay together. Aaliyah got very close with Lydia. And Lydia, which also shocked me of this season. This season's crazy. Lydia was with Uche in a previous time.
Yep.
Like before the show.
I think like 6 months or something like that.
Yeah.
Before the show.
Yeah. And so to me, I was like, oh my God. So they knew each other.
Yep.
And so as soon as I found that information out, I was like, oh my gosh, Lydia is literally kind of just out to get Aaliyah. Because she kept saying to her while she was comforting her, she's like, you're just like me. You're just like me. I see myself in you. But now that I look at it, I'm thinking like she was just trying to be a good friend.
I mean, she was just going about it the wrong way.
She was mentally, what is it called? Mental dumping? There's a word for that.
I don't know.
She was trauma dumping. And because the producers told her that she could say a lot more now, that she wasn't
with Uche?
Yeah, like that because in the first episode, apparently, Uche and Lydia met, and we didn't see it because it's not really important, but I would have loved to see that footage so much. I would have loved to see, because I know the cameras are rolling.
Lydia?
Yeah. And so Uche was talking, and Lydia goes, she even said like his name, like, do you know who this is? And he was like, I do not. Who is this? And so she said it, and then the producers decided, maybe we should kick these two out.
Yeah.
And they ended up choosing not to because they realized that they didn't want to be together anyway.
Yeah.
They wanted to pursue other relationships for the most part. At the beginning, it felt kind of like they were trying to get information from the other people dating the person.
It did seem like that.
But in the end, it ended up working out for Lydia. But for Aaliyah, she ended up leaving because it just got so much. Her relationship with Uche was kind of already toxic. Like, they would be vulnerable to each other, and then he would make her feel like crap, and then, maybe she would make him feel kind of crappy about it. And so she was already kind of on the edge about certain things that he was telling her. And what made it worse was that Lydia was saying very specific, detailed things about Uche's life, like what kind of dog, or like just random, like what kind of car he drives, his
unnecessary
friends,
information.
the fact that she hooked up with him a few months ago. She was just like, Aaliyah was just sitting there like,
rather forthcoming with information.
It just seemed very like forceful. Like, I have to listen to this, even though I told you multiple times and I'm not comfortable listening to it.
Yeah,
you're telling me this anyway. So Aaliyah decided to leave, and Uche finds this out and is obviously upset and asked the producers for, I think, his phone or the producer's phone, because they had her number, calls her and is visibly upset, and Aaliyah's upset and saying like, I didn't want to leave, but like I felt kind of forced to with everything that was being shoved down my throat. So it kind of ends there, and they meet up once more after everything, because obviously Uche goes home because he didn't find anyone.
Yep.
And Aaliyah went home. They meet up in Houston at like a restaurant, and they talk about it, and Aaliyah's kind of ready to continue the relationship, and Uche's like, well, no, I'm good. Like, if you decided to leave, that was on you. I don't want to stick with someone who left. But I feel like he didn't really listen to her concerns. He was just like, you didn't stick it out for me, but like, if you really think about it deep down, she was seeing more Lydia than she was seeing Uche.
And there were like, the story between Uche and Lydia is pretty interesting. Uche claims basically that Lydia was a crazy ex and like was following his friends to figure out what he was up to.
Taking pictures of his house.
Yeah, drove by his house. Yeah. And
following some Instagram stories.
Pretty significant claims. Now, we as the audience didn't get to see the proof of any of that.
And he tried to show screenshots.
Yeah, he tried to show screenshots to Milton.
Yeah, and Milton was like...
Yeah, who was engaged to Lydia at the time, and Milton wasn't really having it.
Which I very much applaud.
Yeah, that was
like
good on
at
him.
this point, like the way he worded it was very nice. It was like, that is between you and her. This is between me and her. I don't need to know any of y'all's past. he said it in a certain way that
Oh, he was using some trigonometry that he did not need to do.
But
he was going way over the top.
It was a good way of like putting it though.
Yeah. And then we have Johnny and Chris, who did they meet in the pods?
So this is my favorite couple. There was also a love triangle here.
Was there? Oh.
There was Johnny, Chris, and then Izzy.
Ah.
Johnny and Izzy met, and she was definitely more into Izzy. That was like the way she described it. It was her type. Mm-hmm. So it kind of was like her number one, and Chris was her number two. Izzy broke things off with Johnny, and so Johnny went back to Chris as like a second. I would say a second choice. I mean, she could say she said a safe choice, basically. Mm-hmm. She called him a safe choice and went back, and he was like, well, I don't like being chosen second, so I'm also good. So Chris and Johnny did not get together during the pods. They also ended up leaving.
They left the show. And then met up in the airport, actually.
Yes!
Leaving. So they met in the airport.
That was very interesting.
I don't know how exactly. I guess they heard each other's voices in the airport and ran into each other, and they hit it off right away. Mm-hmm. And so we see them in the barbecue reunion. Yeah. Maybe a week or a couple of days after the pods, and they look like a pretty decent couple. And during the barbecue, Stacy and Izzy are like coming after Johnny.
Oh my God.
Some alleged things that happened that we didn't see on camera. That like Johnny was bashing on Stacy and stuff like that because Stacy and Johnny were both into Izzy. So
yes, yeah, that was the love triangle between like Izzy, Johnny, and Stacy, and then like Johnny was with Chris and Izzy.
So they were both. Everyone was mad at Stacy and Izzy were mad at Johnny.
Yeah.
And Stacy was being really like
very
mean,
vicious.
Just mean. Like
very
not
vicious.
Even like it's already over. Like you've got Izzy. Like
yeah.
It was very off-putting.
It was and she kind of came off at the barbecue. I really started to realize like how truly I did not like Stacy. And I don't feel bad saying that cuz I feel like her real personality came out there. And Johnny just kind of sat back and was like, I'm here with my boyfriend, Chris, and
for now.
For the night. For the rest of the night. And then, anyway.
Yeah, Johnny kind of got the poop end of the stick because after the barbecue, Chris had to go to a wedding somewhere,
He went to a wedding out of state.
He went to a wedding and then just ghosted Johnny.
Yeah,
and he left the state and must have come back at some point and never texted, never called, never answered anything.
Like broke up with her. So
yeah, never broke up with her.
He hooked up with someone. I'm not sure if it was at the wedding or if it was at a bar, but he hooked up with someone and he cheated. He was mature as well. I will say he admitted it. He was like
he did, but he didn't feel genuine. Nothing that Chris said felt genuine at that reunion. It felt like he was not sorry at all.
Well,
he
he's
didn't
with
give
that person
any
now.
shits. And I was really surprised that Johnny didn't like call him out right there, but maybe she was just over it.
I think she's content where she is. I think she's very mature.
She's seeing someone too. So she probably is just over Chris and his BS.
She gives elegant. She was my favorite of the season. Maybe that's why I'm not very into Stacey is because the way she treated Johnny. But what really shocked me was Chris. I did not expect him to do that. I did not expect him. Yeah. I had such high hopes. And what's funny is before we saw the reunion, I saw an Instagram story from Johnny and I clicked on it and I sent it to you and I was like, oh, Chris and Johnny! And then I looked at the story and I'm like, that's not Chris and Johnny. One thing I will say going into the reunion is anyone else not a really big fan of the hosts?
The Lachey's.
Like, Vanessa gives Mean Girl vibes.
She's like stir the pot, but not in like not in interesting ways, just kind of like mean ways.
Like, she did one thing where I understand someone's talking and it can come off rude when another pair is talking while this other person's talking.
Oh, that. Oh, my
But
gosh.
so Stacy was talking, and Chris and Johnny were like sharing a laugh.
Chris started it.
Chris did start it. He was like, you're fine. You didn't do anything wrong. Like, it's, and even Johnny was like she's just like, okay.
It's like, I know, yeah.
But then, like, he was making her laugh. And so Johnny was responding back, being nice, because she didn't want to come off as, like, rude. Probably the first time she's seeing Chris since the whole thing. So she wanted to be cordial, I'm sure. That's my assumption. But Vanessa, one of the hosts, goes, I'm sorry. Do you have something to share? Isn't someone talking over here?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. Like, someone was talking over here, and it was just like very validating, I'm sure, to Stacy, but it was also very just, I don't know. It just came off so like, why is she so for the villains? Like last season, I can't remember who she was for, but it just really bugged me that she was coming at, I think she was coming at one of the guys.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even his fault. She's going to come at all the good ones, I guess, in my eyes. I don't know about y'all, but if we could have a vote for a new set of hosts.
Who do you think we're going to have?
I think the couple from season 4. I forgot her name. The one
I think
that
you should use a couple from the previous season as a
I
as
think
a
so.
host.
I can't remember Cameron and I can't remember her name. I think that they could have a new set of hosts.
Yeah.
And it could be someone from a previous season that is successful because they know how this process is. So overall, this season was pretty wild. I'm excited to see if they come out with season 6. I feel like this one was kind of a bit of a downfall for Love is
They
Blind.
might have a bit of a twist next season.
Yeah, and I'm hoping they do it in Tampa because I've heard so many rumors about the next season being in Tampa, and I'd love to see. I told my friend that she should go on, but they may have already casted. Who knows? Because, they film those things like... By the way, this was filmed in 2022.
I would say in this season, Love has poor vision, but still can see. So... maybe better luck next time. Well, thanks for listening to our rant about Love is Blind Season 5. And I think that ends this episode of
ETC. Bye.
Bye.